we're gonna. All righty. Now we are recording, and I hopefully am sharing the correct screen. Keith, tell
I
me
am
what.
seeing performance reviews of neurodivergent workers. Yes.
Yay.
And I see the sort of one, two, three, what is it? Quadrilat? No. What's
I
the
know.
tetra,
It's a weird.
four-sided figure? I can't remember what I'm
Got it. Thank you. Fair
at.
enough. Got it. No, I mean, it's only, what is it? It's July. It's only taken me 7 tries, hopefully, to get this right. It's so crazy. So crazy. Oh, well, this year is flying by.
Yeah. That seems to be getting better,
Yeah,
at least unless things have changed since our talk last week.
yes, things are getting better.
Yeah.
Things are getting better. My little pretty.
I'm losing another one though.
Are you? Oh,
Yeah. Well, again,
don't say the name because we're being recorded.
yes. It's it's like I talked with Sam, and we've done all we really can do for this person.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, it's like they need help in a specialized industry, which we do not have. I
Yeah,
pointed them in the right direction, saying this is what you do. But it's like, and I expected that. It's like, oh, can't really do much more. So
that's right.
really specialized
Yeah,
skills here.
yeah.
Okie doke. Do, 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 do.
All righty, we will wait just a little bit longer and then we will get started here on performance
Cool.
reviews.
Has it, have we had any or many requests for the recordings
I know that
of
people
past
are,
ones?
so yes, we've had people who have requested them and I know they're being watched and I'm glad.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So since we're recording and all of this is going to be posted on our site, shall we get started?
Yes.
And welcome everybody for performance reviews with neurodivergent workers. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart in many ways because I have been the person who's had to write many, many, many performance reviews over the years. And I've gotten, of course, performance reviews. And now we help people kind of navigate through performance reviews that they may have received and how best to approach them. So we will get started if I can make my thing click. So for those of you who might be new to us, we are EvoLibri. We're located here in Santa Clara, California. We provide multidisciplinary services to neurodivergent teens and adults, their families, their employers throughout their lives. So we work with people ages 14. The oldest person I worked with directly was 72 years old. So we kind of run the gamut of adulthood, from young adults to senior citizens. I am Jan Johnston-Tyler. I am the founder and CEO of EvoLibri, and today we have Keith Halperin with us. He is a talent and placement expert who joined us, over a year ago now. You've been here for a while. And
Yes.
yes, and we're excited to have him. He brings a host of talent and expertise and knowledge to our offerings. So today we are talking about performance reviews. So we're going to start with, why do we need performance reviews? What is their purpose besides making everybody anxious and unhappy? How can we prepare for reviews? How do we reframe review feedback to wins and challenges? how to get and give feedback in review, and how to use that feedback constructively. That's what's on the agenda today. So I will get started here and start with the good, the bad, and the ugly of performance reviews. So in their very best light, a performance review is a really good way to capture events of the previous period, whether that was a quarter or a year, or some people do them every 2 years. What worked, what was great, and what needs to be worked on. This is documentation that managers use, companies use to promote people. For example, if you're trying to get a promotion, your manager most likely will have to document why you deserve that promotion. And they will do that by documenting over time the increasing capability, quality, leadership, etc., that you have shown that goes to the promotion. It is also, on the other side, also used to document challenges. This is, in our air quote litigious state, when a manager perceives that an employee is not doing a good enough job or it's not a good fit, your manager will need to collect evidence, if you will, of that person not making the grade before the person is let go. However, in the best of worlds, all performance reviews should be collaborative. Both parties should agree with most of what is said in a review, both good and bad, and nothing should be a surprise in a performance review. This, unfortunately, this last rule really is broken quite a bit, and that has to do with managers not being able to find a way to convey negative feedback appropriately to an employee. And so sometimes they will simply avoid giving any feedback, so that when an employee sits down for a performance review, they get blasted between the eyes with problems they didn't even understand were happening. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well, but that's why we do performance reviews.
Mhm.
Keith?
Yes. People who are being reviewed have a very active role here. And there are 3 areas that we consider here that are very important to consider. First of all, keep a brag list throughout the year or the performance period, however long it may be. You should be collecting your wins, the projects in time, the money you saved, the customers you made happy, the colleagues you helped. Keep track of the positive. These can be various types of things, such as if you are in an organization that is very quantitative, emphasizing numbers. I exceeded quota by 12%. I saved the company $400,000, et cetera, et cetera. Other types of organizations, you might want to be more qualitative. I was able to create a substantially more inclusive environment for our workforce, or I was able to help these children do things that they were not able to do, etc. So it can be either quantitative or qualitative. 2, do postmortems. Similarly, when things go foul, spend just a few, don't dwell on it too much, minutes documenting what happened. Be as objective as you can. I know it's often very hard to do, but don't blame, don't criticize, but lay it out matter-of-factly what happened, and very much important in this case, keep track of these. That's it. And finally, on this area, keep track of the objectives. Also throughout the performance period, monitoring your objectives from the previous period to make sure you're on track. You use what you had before, assuming you've had a previous period with them, and see in what ways you have changed, hopefully improved in the areas that you need to do. Okay, do your objectives need tweaking? And again, as we say, in an active role, talk to your manager. Even though it's sometimes very difficult to do so, I found out in my own cases that it tends to be a very helpful thing to do. Back to you.
Perfect. And just to follow up on objective tweaking, I've heard a lot, and Keith, you probably have too, where midway through a year or a time period of some sort, the person's original objectives have been completely blown out of the water by a reorganization, by a major shift in the company's focus. So what the person was supposed to be working on or originally was working on disappears. So in that case, it's important to meet with your manager to make sure that you're on target, that, even if your manager says, I have no idea what we're supposed to be doing either, at least you have documentation of that, right? Because you don't want to be accused of not working on the new objectives, which you never knew about, right? Yeah. So, whoops, sorry. Go back. I'm trying to move all my little bars around so I can see. So, if asked for feedback for your review, and I really hope that you will be, most review feedbacks do have a place to talk about what you've done. Now, as Keith had said, if you've kept that file with all your brags, all the things that you've worked on, you've also got all of your challenges of things. You really should go back through that. Talk about the successes in your feedback for your review, but also talk about your challenges and what you learned from them. For example, one that I hear a lot is a particular project was delayed. Your project was reliant on another group or another person's input. You requested the input on this date. You did not hear back from anybody. You asked again, still did not hear back from anybody, and that caused you to be late. Now, I've seen this particular scenario play out many times. So you don't want to say, so-and-so didn't give me the information. What you want to say is, although I requested the information on this date and again on this date, you should have that in your email, we were not provided with the information until such and such a time, which caused us to be late. Now, what the lesson learned there may have been is when you should have escalated to your manager or your team lead, you were not getting the input you needed. So that's what we talk about, the successes, but also the challenges and how to frame those challenges, not by blaming somebody else, but just laying out the timeline of what happened when. And then at that point, your manager or team lead can say, at this juncture right here on the second date or whatever, that would have been the time to escalate so that you can learn from that, right? Not to blame anybody, but what action could you have taken to make the situation go away, if you will? So you also want to talk about areas of growth. Talk about what you think are your areas for growth, both soft and hard skills. And you need to be honest with yourself. None of us are perfect. None of us do not have things we should work on. I'm an old lady. There's still stuff I need to work on in a professional environment. This shows openness and willingness to change and adapt, right? So when, we're talking about hard skills, maybe there's a new technology that you'd like to learn or you need to learn. Maybe there's a new portal or application that's been rolled out that you haven't had a chance to really dig into to learn how to work it effectively. And soft skills, maybe you need to work on your communication, don't we all? Maybe you need to work on your time management skills, don't we all? Right? So be honest with yourself. Really talk about not only the positives, but the areas that could use some work. And hopefully you can talk about as well where you'd like your career to go from where you are today. What do you want to learn? What opportunities are you looking for? And don't be stagnant. So, this is also a problem we see with a lot of neurodivergent people is and we're going to talk about this in a minute, they get slotted. So talk about what else you want to do, not just what you're doing today, but where would you hope to go in the future? Keith, any further on that?
Yes. Might be here to talk about it, might be later on, but one of the things that I've been exposed to, though I didn't have one myself, is like self-evaluations as part of the performance review. And I'm curious as to what your thoughts are about how best to deal with that, incorporating what we've had here, or if there are other things that you think might be useful when that happens.
I love self-evaluations, but then I like that kind of thing. I'm a little weird. But yeah, I think if you go off on, especially on your own and take one of the thousands of evals on um, available online, many of them for free, you can always talk about, hey, in a review feedback form, I did this assessment and learned this about myself and think that maybe this is an area that I could grow into. This is also perchance the place that you say, I think I would really benefit from some coaching, especially on my communication skills or especially on my time management skills,
Mhm.
right? And so you can call out your known areas of growth and offer a solution, heaven forbid. Love it. All right, Keith.
Okay, so when you actually get the review, I think it's the first thing to do, makes sense, as in many things that we get that are written down, read it beforehand. If at all possible, ask to read the review before meeting with your manager. This gives you a quiet time to read, reflect, and understand. Make notes, have questions ready, think about how you will respond to. You think, try to be zen, try to be chill. You know, I know we hate getting these things unless they're 110% perfect, but nevertheless, everyone almost gets negative feedback from some source or another, but is often part of a review. Remember, all of us have areas to grow. God, do I have so many? Uh, so really try to understand what the feedback means, things like that. And finally, be aware of bias. Look for signs, positive and negative, that there is bias in the review. We're going to get into that in a little bit. And any thoughts here?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the negative bias, but there is also the potential for positive bias. And
Mhm.
I'll just go over it quickly. So, positive bias doesn't seem like it'd be a bad thing, right? So, you may be the favorite of the manager, and
Mhm.
consciously or unconsciously, and you might be getting better assignments. You might be given a little bit more leeway in the way things are done or the time in which things are done because you're a favorite. That may not sound like a bad idea or a bad thing, but it can be. It can be because it can build resentment up around everybody else in your team, number one. Number two, if you work for another manager, you may not have that positive bias anymore. So you may be a bit spoiled. So pay attention to that. Are you being treated preferentially without undue cause? And if so, be wary. That's all I can say. Don't be paranoid, but be wary, right? And make sure that you are not taking accolades that really are not yours because that may not work out to your benefit. Okay, let's move on. So, here are some of the potential biases that I have come across. Whoops, God bless it. Sorry about that. Trying to move this darn bar in reviews, and just a few things that to be aware of. And some of these are a little bit easier to deal with than others. So, number one trick pony. We see this a lot with neurodivergent employees, particularly autistic folk, where they tend to be slotted into a particular role or type of role and they never move forward. They don't get promoted. They are not offered new training. They are not offered new opportunities because this is oftentimes based on the managers or the company's air quote knowledge that autistic people are good at doing this one thing, like sorting and matching, which we hear, or pattern finding, which is just not okay. Yes, You may have that as a strong trait, but that, for heaven's sakes, does not mean that you can't do anything else, right? So if you want to do more than the job that you have right now, and I hope you will, then you need to be on the lookout for that one trick pony. We have a client who we've worked with for many, many years who was trying so hard to get into another, to move careers or move really from technical writing into program management. And it took them many years to get there because everybody just assumed that the one thing that they had proven themselves to be good at was the only thing that they could do, which is crazy. The next is communication style. We see this a lot. Obviously, neurodivergent folk may have different communication styles and needs, which may run counter to the prevailing culture in a company. This can be kind of dicey, right? You know, there is a certain way that things are done in a company, a certain way. It is considered sort of the common culture of that company. It is somewhat difficult to change that culture once it's really embedded, right? Once it's been around for a while, it's kind of hard to change. For example, there are companies that document and communicate primarily through Slack. Slack can be a tool that can really be disruptive for certain people with executive functioning skill or deficits because it's constantly zapping them. They cannot focus. It's difficult for them to task switch. And so oftentimes they will just turn it off for a while. They may then be accused of not being in touch or open to communication because they've had to shut that off. So that's something that needs to be negotiated. Levels of formality is another one that I've come across. And ironically, it's that some neurodivergent people can be overly formal, which some other people in the company may find um, uh, uncomfortable. The other is frequency. How often are you communicating? And I've seen this go both ways, where I've heard complaints from managers. This person just emails me constantly throughout the day and I don't have time to get back to them. Or I've been trying to get in contact with this person for 4 days and they're not responding. So some of this is a matter of sort of a mutual adaptation and working through to kind of find a happy medium. But some of it may be really just difficult to cope with, especially, for example, like with the Slack. A person who's interrupt driven, we have to make sure that they are protected, and that may not work well in that environment. And you're not going to change a company of 15,000 people to not use Slack the same way, right? Social style. Sometimes neurodivergent people are told that they're not approachable. I've heard that many, many times. It's just so hard to even talk to him because he seems so unapproachable. So this has something to do, obviously, with eye contact, but also body language and the way that a person may hold themselves. It may have something to do with the fact that, hey, we have a beer bust every Thursday afternoon and Joshua never comes. You know, he's obviously antisocial. No, that's not what's going on. Or they may believe that a coworker appears awkward. So that social style, if that's coming out that they're not approachable, that's something that we really need to dig into. What do you mean by not approachable? Because we need to break that down. We need to figure out how to fix that one, right? Because most neurodivergent people are highly approachable if you know how to approach them and when to approach them, right? Lack of specificity. This last one I see also all the darn time. Many neurodivergent people struggle with understanding what the job is. How much, how fast, how accurate, when should it start? When do I know I'm done? Right? I know that sounds crazy, but in some work environments, a neurodivergent person may not know because the jobs, for some jobs, it's not done in a day. So how do I know when it's okay for me to leave? We've dealt with that with software engineers. So that's part of a challenge as well. And on top of it, managers struggle with giving details because they don't understand it. They assume that everybody thinks like they do and that a person will know when they put in a reasonable day's work or how accurate something needs to be or how fast they should be working. So these can be really dicey and ones that you may or may not need a coach to help bear it out. Keith, anything on this?
Oh, yes. In my experience, as an employee, and particularly as a neurodivergent employee, it is our job to find out these things. We need to be proactive. We need to act as sort of explorers or scouts to see what these actually are at the company. You know, watch, listen, and to learn. And then, based on what we've learned, we can say, okay, I can do this. May take a little work, but I can do this. Or I can't do this. I'm going to need to ask for an accommodation. Or possibly, if you don't know, see if you can find out more. Regrettably, many of us wait to see what happens and see how we are treated. And unfortunately, that reactive approach can lead to problems. So we need to go out there and find out, as they say, using this explore analogy, the lay of the land and act accordingly.
Very good. Yes, indeed. Yeah, this is not a FAFO, an FAFO kind of thing to do. We want the information. All
Okay.
right, Keith.
Well, we're
Oh,
talking. Go
sorry.
ahead.
Let me just give an overview. So I'm sorry. These next few slides, I came across a little trove, a wonder trove of some feedback that is often used in reviews. And because I had seen so many of these and had written a few of them, I thought they were good to go over because I think that it's difficult sometimes to identify in each situation, your situation is going to be different, of which ones of these are bias and which ones are areas of actual need that you can work on. And again, it's going to be different for everybody, but I think it's worthwhile going through them. Go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
Very good. Okay. There have been instances when your messages could be misunderstood due to lack of clarity. Developing your communication skills should be a focus area. So, I'm going to step back a little bit. I'm going to go through all of these and then I'm going to sort of comment
Perfect.
on them as opposed to one after another. So, while your technical skills are strong, improving your interpersonal skills could help build better relationships within the team. You occasionally tend to dominate conversations, which can prevent others from sharing their views. Actively inviting and listening to others' inputs could help address this. At times, there seems to be a delay in your responses to emails and messages. Prompt communication is crucial for effective team functioning. Improving your ability to convey negative or constructive feedback in a respectful and understanding manner should be a focus of you going forward. Okay, so a lot of these are, from my interpretation, sort of fundamental attributes of how many of us, and those who aren't familiar with me, I identify as being on the spectrum. I've never been formally diagnosed, but I tell people if I'm not on the spectrum, I'm damn close to it. So that's what I mean by us. So a lot of these seem to be characteristics of what many of us possess generally. That's just how we are. And then going back to the previous things, some of these things are things that we can say, oh, I wasn't aware of that, or I was aware of that, but I will try better at it. Others of these is like, just not going to get better, and then you need to get an accommodation. Beyond that, I have sort of a general comment which will apply to many of these feedback cards is, okay, someone hears this, what are you supposed to do then? What does, how do, how do I develop my communication skills? What communication skills should I develop? Things like that. Or Next one, interpersonal skills. What in particular do you mean? Things like that. Um, Dominating conversation. What, uh, that's just how I do. What does that mean? Okay. So there's a lot of generality in these particular things. And if we were to receive them, in my professional opinion, we really need to take some time and maybe not at the same time as these comments are made, but to get a detailed explanation of specifically what to do. And if we mention, then we can figure out, yes, we can work on these, or no, we can't. I've heard a very recent statistic which said about 70% of the things that we're going to be receiving here in these cards can be fixed either through coaching, just a little bit, or more, and about 20 of this percent maybe training, which will involve a lot more work, but the remaining 30% are really fundamental to who we are, and that's the sort of thing that we may need to ask for accommodations. Back to you, Jen.
Perfect. Yes, indeed. All right, we'll go to the next one. So executive functioning. Again, I've heard all of these. At times, you struggle to manage your workload effectively, which has led to missed deadlines. Improving your time management skills should be a priority as it affects your efficiency and productivity. Your approach to managing tasks can sometimes be inefficient. Working on task prioritization could help improve your performance. There have been instances when the quality of your work was compromised due to poor time management. While you contribute positively to our team, improving efficiency and time management will allow you to further excel in your role. All of these are coaching issues, all of them. And so, and Keith, I think you would agree. All of these are issues that we work with clients on in terms of helping them to be more effective and to be more efficient, to work on prioritization. I mean, basically everything on the screen is in our CEO of Self handbook. And I think it's important to recognize that we know that a great deal of executive functioning impact, it goes hand in hand with neurodivergency for whatever reason. And there's no harm or foul, but I think all of us, would benefit from being a little bit better in our time management in our busy, busy, busy lives. We are all tasked with getting way more done than we really should be trying to do. So it's tough. It is very, very tough, but you can get better. Almost everybody can work on this. Now, whether or not you're going to be an absolute star in terms of executive functioning, maybe not, but you can usually get better. You can do a little bit more. So, but again, if you're getting anything like this on your feedback, on your review, all of these really are giving you permission to ask for coaching.
Mhm.
If it says, improving your time management skills, well, that's not something that natively most of us can do. We don't even know what it means. Most people don't even know what that means. So all of these are areas where you can get some help, right? And I think that's the most important takeaway from this kind of feedback. Keith, comments?
Yes. Two things. I've had some difficulties with this in my past too. And two questions that help me deal with this sort of thing that would be very good, if not a requirement upfront would be, if it's not clearly specified, is when do you need this done and how do you need this done? You get that as specifically as you can, and it goes a long way to helping what you need to do, like that.
Perfect.
I've also found, and this goes back to like the managers not giving you enough details along those lines, then what I often suggest is if you don't get all the information that you need as to when something needs to be done and how it needs to be done, you let them know, saying, based on what I've understood, I'm going to give you this by such and such a time, done in such and such a way. If you need it be differently, let me know and I will work toward that. Otherwise, this is when you'll get and this is what you'll get. And then it's on them.
Perfect. Love it. Whoops, whoops, whoops. Sorry.
No worries.
The driver clearly is not driving well. Okay.
Is that executive functioning or more of time management?
Oh, it's been a week. It's just been a week. All right, Keith, your turn.
Okay. Flexibility. At times you seem to struggle with adapting to new circumstances or changes in plans. While your work is consistent, demonstrating more flexibility in dealing with unexpected situations would be beneficial. Improving your adaptability to sudden changes in project direction should be focus area for the coming period. There have been instances when your inability to adjust quickly to new tasks has impacted the team's productivity. We would encourage a more open mindset towards change and new ideas, as this will aid in your growth and our team's success. This, okay,
These are tough. These are tough. Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, this to me, it seems more like this is how people may be. And it's like, if you don't like change, you don't like change. If you don't like surprises, you don't like surprises. You may get more used to them, but that doesn't mean you'll be happy. Um, this goes back to what I've been saying before. There's in almost any environment, there's likely to be changes, there's likely to be unexpected things. But what you can do is to be aware of that and think of particular things that you would do when something like that happens. If you aren't sure of what changes are likely to happen, what new circumstances, it would be very sensible to talk with your manager and your peers and say, things seem to be pretty steady here, but I understand every once in a while something goes very, very, very different. What are some of those things? So you find out what you can do when those change happens, and though you may not be happy with it, you'll be prepared. It goes to like the thing about the known unknown and the unknown unknown. You can work, and you should try to work to find out what the known unknown would be. Things will change, but you don't know what or where, but you know the sort of things, and that may help things. The unknown unknown you can't really deal with. But what you can tell people is, I find it most helpful to be as prepared as I can for when changes happen. Also, I'm letting you know up front, when things are completely unexpected, it may take me a little longer to adjust and adapt. I hope that's okay with you. So, in summary, prepare as much as you can for what you can expect and let people know when the unexpected happens, you may not be at 100% all the time. At least that's what I tell people to do.
Yep. No, it's good. And a lot of this that we're seeing here in these is these will come up in chaotic companies, and some companies really kind of thrive on that chaos or that constant continual change. And in some companies, it's built into the culture. There are companies, one really big one that I know of, that every year you're going to be moved to a new role every darn year. And that's hard for a lot of people. I don't know that I am pretty adaptable and pretty flexible, but boy, that would be hard for me too. So if this type of thing is coming up a lot, it may also say maybe this isn't the right job for me. And this is the kind of question also, Keith, that I think people can ask when they're interviewing for a job. How frequently do projects change direction? How often, do situations change rapidly? Is this a pretty stable position, or is there a lot of change, a lot of chaos? Because some of us are more flexible than others, right? Flexibility can be taught to some degree, but
Mhm.
not across the board, right? Because we're talking about sort of how we center ourselves and how we see ourselves. Some people, so for example, ADHD folks tend to love that chaos. Autistic people do not. And heaven forbid you're both autistic and ADHD because you're being pulled in both directions, right? But some people do it well, some people don't. It seems to be more ingrained. Executive functioning, for example, is a skill you can learn. Communication, to some degree, are skills you can learn. To learn to be flexible or not flexible or less flexible is difficult when we're talking about people and how they present in the world. Yeah, that's it. That one is a toughie. All right. So preparing feedback for your review. I'm big on writing scripts. I like to write scripts for things because it really does help me walk through what I want to say and to have it as formulated thoughts that I can pull up after especially if I'm in a difficult conversation, if I'm stressed out, if I have something specific to say, if I've written it down, it makes it easier. So write down those thoughts or even full scripts. This can help a great deal when we're in an emotional state and trying to remember what we want to say. I know we've all been through that where we've had a conversation with somebody and afterwards we're like, God, what I really wanted to say was XYZ. We'll have that written down. And you can have those notes with you during the review, even if it's live and in person. That's okay. Also ask for specific feedback. Much feedback is very vague in reviews. That's done somewhat purposefully. But because it's so vague, it's kind of inaction or unactionable. If somebody says, for example, the do better, it's reasonable to ask exactly what does that mean? Work more hours, have more efficiency, more accuracy in my work. What does do better mean? And try to get that in writing. That's really, really critical. I mean, you don't have to have, Jason needs to do 15% better by, being 25% more accurate and on time 35% or whatever it is. You don't need that, but you do need more specificity and challenges that are features of neurodivergency. So this is important for self-advocacy. We would not tell a blind person to just try harder to see better. And in some cases, that's what reviews are asking. We want you to be friendlier. Don't take things so seriously. Communicate more frequently. Some of this can be worked on, but some of it may require accommodations. So we don't want you to ask for accommodations across the board, especially if it's something you likely can improve with a little bit of help and a little bit of coaching. But at the same time, again, with the flexibility, things like issues like that, those are difficult and more long-term at the very best to work on. So you may need accommodations to deal with that. Keith, any
Yep.
comments?
Very much, particularly, writing scripts and specific feedback is they do in non-performance things. Typically, when you're asked to do something that may be a little unclear, what I would suggest, as in this case, would be write down what you understand that the person is indicating. Saying, "Oh, you indicate that I blah 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 should do this. Is that correct?" If you've got the details, says you need me to be on time every day. Is that correct? And then they sign off on that. If they say, well, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If they aren't specific, then you go back to what I said. So based on what I understand at this point, I will do X, Y, and Z. If you need me to do different, let me know, ideally in writing, and I will do that. But other than that, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to work on. Things like that. And you put it back in their accord. The key here is for everyone to be on the proverbial same page. You know what they want you to do, and they know you are going to do what they want you to do.
And one last thing on that, get it in writing. What I often do after I've had a meeting with somebody, regardless of the meeting, if we have made decisions that may be called into question later, or if we have agreements on things that people may, air quote, forget, I will send an email right after that meeting back to the people in that meeting and say, this is what we went over today. And people then have the ability to say, no, that wasn't my understanding. So you can ferret out any misunderstanding right then and there. Or it is a record that that agreement has been made. And that's something that you should hang on to for future. All righty, Keitho.
All right. Building alliance, working together. Here's what I bring. Remind managers of what you're truly at and how those skills can be extended can help to build a reasonable plan, both on the things that you need to work on and the things that you're already doing very well at. Help me to succeed. Make it clear to your manager that you do want to succeed, that the job is important to you and you're willing to stretch a bit. Often that's hard to do, but it's an important thing nevertheless. Finally, here's what I need. Ask for what you need to be successful, not over the moon, but reasonable contact, accommodations, or support. And again, do it in a positive manner, saying, I work best when, or this helps me when I, etc. Not like, well, I need, stuff like that. Putting it out there, indicating you can do well and you do well. You just need these things to do it. So back to you, Jan.
Excellent. So what do you need? We've kind of talked a little bit about this, but specifically, there are things that you can ask for. And if you're getting any feedback that you don't think you can handle on your own, then it's worth having this conversation with your manager or HR. So the first is to ask for a mentor. Sometimes difficulty may not be an issue or maybe an issue of not understanding the company culture. As simple as that, particularly in large and well-established organizations, having a mentor to show you the ropes, especially early on in a job, can be really, really useful. So a mentor can tell you, oh yeah, this is how normally things are done, or everybody in your department is using this tool. And yeah, it's kind of annoying, but that's the way it goes. So at least that it gives you kind of the lay of the land. So you don't have to find these things out accidentally after you've made some faux pas. You can also ask for a coach. So, and that's not an unusual request at all for neurodivergent folks, especially to help with these things that we've brought up already, the communication, executive functioning, and emotional regulation, being able to handle those stressful situations. These are issues that coaching can address. And it's useful for most neurodivergent folks who are getting negative feedback to have that coaching to work on those skills. And then lastly, accommodations. You may just need accommodations. Part-time work from home if you're stressy, more contact with your manager if you're unclear on what you should be doing and how you should be prioritizing things, for example. Reduced required contact with other teams if you're getting caught into all kinds of nasty little upsets with, turf wars. You can find our more information out on our previous webinar on accommodations. It's probably worth watching through that about how to get accommodations and how to utilize them. Keith, anything?
Yes. Big question on number 2. If you haven't already gone through an organization which is helping with your employment, where do you go to ask for a coach?
Well, you can ask HR for coaching. They may provide one, or they may have contracts with people. Certainly, EvoLibri, we provide coaching, of course. And we can work directly with companies, or we do private pay. I would always ask your company first if they have coaching services based on the needs outlined in your review. If they don't, or if they don't want to help you, you can always go private pay. But if they don't have anybody that they're offering right up, you could also say, I'm going to find a coach. Will you pay for it? You've
Mhm.
identified this need, and as an accommodation request, I'm going to ask for coaching. So you
Mhm.
can work it that way as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Oops, there we go. All righty, Keith, last one, bringing it on home.
Thank you. All of this to say, know thyself, and to thyself be true. Anyway, um, first one. None of us are perfect, except you, Jan. Feedback is useful for everyone to understand how to fine tune our performance to best match the job at hand. You know, silly as an aside, again, we're human. Hopefully, our bosses will recognize that. Okay. And also, all of us need to stretch. Though we may not like change, we do need to grow and not to stagnate. Okay. All of us have areas we need to work on, which means we will sometimes have to try to things that are hard for us. That is the nature of life. Okay. Three, all of us are continually learning. At least we hope so. We all need to be learning constantly, or we are not giving our best effort. Nothing stays the same. Goes back to the last one. The only continuing thing is change. Okay. Self-advocate when needed. This is very, very important. When you cannot do part of a job without I'm asking or self-harm, it's time to ask for help through accommodations, coaching, etc. You know, don't get it to the point where it's necessary. If you things are getting very bad for you, whatever bad means in your case, then do this. I know what that can be like. Okay. It's your life. At the end of the day, all jobs are jobs. They're not going to be 100% fun. These so-called dream jobs, that pretty much, in my professional opinion, is an illusion. But they shouldn't be impossible or demeaning either. We should have things which basically pay our needs and our family's needs if that we have one, you know, don't destroy our bodies, our minds, or our souls quickly or slowly, and give us enough time in the rest of our life to develop things which are important to us. That's a reasonable aspiration for most of us to have, and something that many of us, fortunately, in this time can get. And we should have that too. So that's about it for me, Jan. What
Oh,
about you?
that's absolutely wonderful. And when I talk about, or when we're talking about self-harm, I'm not talking about suicidality or cutting yourself necessarily. I'm talking about the self-harm of not getting enough sleep, of not taking time off, of missing dentist and medical appointments because you can't take the time off. That is also self-harm. We all need to have respite. We all need to have our own time, as Keith had said, our quiet enjoyment. That is super important for
Mm.
us as beings. So again, a job's a job at the end of the day. A company doesn't own you and they shouldn't be threatening you. But at the same time, we all owe it to do our best within reason. And that's really what it's about. What is reasonable? And that's it for today. Next time, we're talking about employee resource groups and how they've changed a little bit, and internal support structures. We're going to go in a little bit deeper on mentoring, on other groups that you might find within your organizations that might be able to provide some support and some help and some networking. And then after that, burnout, now leave of absence, and finishing out the year with being a neurodivergent ambassador, and the care and feeding of us neurotypicals. I know we're so needy. We're so needy. Anyhow, I thank you all for coming today, and I hope you've enjoyed the seminar. Thanks so much.
Very good. Okie doke. Well,